And welcome back to our program. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are very blessed with your presence and we appreciate you all. We would like to thank you all for your support to us. In the previous episodes we've had, we are honored with all the love, the feedbacks, the critique, and of course the support from all of you, our faithful viewers. As we continue in this program, we are also learning and growing through your support and feedback. So again, thank you very much. And we welcome you once again from wherever
Welcome.
you're tuning in from, whatever part of Fiji, whatever part of the world.
Bulabalaka.
Welcome. We hope that you have had a good week and that you will enjoy tonight's session. Kita wakambulat tikani we kem nikeda na 70 kumay na bongi binaka nikua nakabaka lebu na 70 kumay ka kita nuita kan dito subinak tiko nang garavitabi and alom ni madongo sa kinto ba kem nikede and akabinak nikua kasanito masunyo ni na marotaka na programa. We would like to acknowledge Acceleration Beyond Limits, ABL Designs, for our very beautiful wardrobe tonight. And thank you again, Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Lau, Amo and May, for your continuous love and support. We would also like to acknowledge Elevation Events for our lightings and also Profile Productions for their support with our sound. This is episode 5. If you had tuned in last week, we had mentioned that episode 5 is specifically for Q&A. We have received so many questions. And when I say so many, like lots of questions. And we must apologize in advance that we may not be able to answer them all in this 1 hour. However, we will try our very best. Please know that we do not have all the answers. And of course, we do not proclaim that our answers are right. We might have a few more episodes in the later shows for Q&A, where we then can answer the other questions that we won't be able to answer tonight. With all the questions that we have received, we've summarized them because most of them are similar. So we hope that tonight you will bear with us and enjoy the program and the questions that we have. We will get straight into the Q&A session tonight because the amount of questions that we have, it only demands us to shorten our very lengthy introductions and welcome. So excuse us and bear with us on that. Yes. So we had summarized the questions in accordance to the episodes that we've had. So we've had 4 episodes in the beginning, and living with the in-laws, how the parents handled the children's story and all that. So question number 1 for all of us family is, since all human beings which exist on the planet were all in Adam's loins, whatever he, Adam, and Eve lost, we, the family, society, and nation also lost. What did Adam and Eve, the family, lose in the Garden of Eden? Because whatever Adam and Eve lost, like this question is saying, we've lost. So what exactly is this thing that they had lost that we have all lost because of that?
That's a very good question for whoever asked that question. One of the laws of studying the Bible is the law called the law of first mention. And the law of first mention states if there is any topic or any issue in the Bible that you want to talk about, the best place to go to is where it is first mentioned in the Bible. So when we talk about marriage, or this covenant, we have to go back to the book of Genesis, and I'm glad we're going back to the book of Genesis to start off the Q&A tonight. Now, what did Adam and Eve lose in the garden when they were tempted by the devil and finally succumbed to sin? We know from the Bible that when God made man, in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 11, he planted eternity in the heart of man. So it was God's original intent that man should live forever. All right? And then he gave him the exercise of free will in the garden. How do we know that? When he said, out of all the trees in the garden, you're free to eat from, but there's one tree in the middle of the garden. Actually, there were 2 trees. The tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So he told Adam, if you eat from the other tree, this is the consequences. So when in the exercise of free will, what that simply means is that God gives us, or gives human beings or man, the prerogative of choice. But it doesn't give us the prerogative of the consequence of the choice. We can choose the choice. We have control. Nobody has any control whatsoever over the consequence of the choice. So Adam and Eve, we know that God gave Adam the directive before Eve came, and then Eve came, of course. But the devil targeted the woman. The woman ate first, and she gave whatever the fruit is to Adam. Where was Adam? Right? Sometimes I ask this question. Well, according to Genesis chapter 3, verse 6, Adam was right there with Eve when the devil was talking to his wife. So before...
He could have controlled.
Well, he was responsible because he was given the directive. He was and he is still the head of the family. So one of the roles of the men there then, as heads of the family, one of their roles is to be able to hear the voice of the enemy speaking to their wife or children and silence that voice. And Adam failed in his responsibility there. So what was the first thing they lost because of sin? They lost the eternal relationship with God. That eternity that God planted in the heart of man was severed right there. Their relationship, because God is a God of relationship. So that's the first thing they lost. They lost that eternal communion with God, that eternal relationship with God. And it was signified by nakedness. And that's why they hid themselves. Now, the second thing that they lost was that relationship between the two of them. Right? This time, that relationship was strained. How do we know that? Because when God held them to account, the blame game started. Right? Who blamed who? Adam blamed Eve. Eve blamed who? The devil. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. Right? And the third thing that they lost was, I would go back again, that man lost his sense of responsibility. Adam. And up till today, the blame game is still being played in the family. And it's usually, unfortunately, the husband's blaming the wife all the time. Right? Blaming the wife. Now, for me, to be honest, I think the problem in the garden was not Eve's problem. This is my own opinion in my study of the Bible. It wasn't Eve's problem. Eve was not given the directive. Adam was. I believe the problem in the garden was the problem of the man. Because the man was right there with his wife. He could have talked to the devil, keep quiet, shut up. I'm responsible here. Right? And Eve at that time also, she could have referred the devil to her husband. No, you talk to my husband. He's responsible here. All right? So I think first it was the failure of the man, the husband, to take responsibility. So they lost the eternal relationship. Praise God. Jesus came, all right, and brought that back through his death on the cross. They lost their relationship. Their relationship was strained. The blame game started. And I believe another thing they lost was that sense of responsibility that the man should have. And every man who is a husband and father in the family must know they are the leaders. They should take responsibility in the family. I hope I've answered that question.
I think you've said it all. I don't have anything to say on that.
Anybody else? Yeah.
No. I think you've answered that.
Yeah.
But thank you. I hope that answered the person's question. For the sake of all your viewers, we agreed that we'll keep everybody anonymous. Most had asked if they could remain anonymous, so because of that, we are keeping everyone's identity as anonymous tonight. Question number 2. This is directed to your mom and dad. Well, mostly to you. The question is, did you struggle with the long-distance relationship with mom when you were away in Thailand?
Yeah.
Not only with her as a husband, but also to us as a father. If so, how did you overcome them? And please share a scenario.
Whoa, boy, did I struggle? Of course I did. And of course, I'm a family man. For me to be away for a week, that's quite a long time. 2 weeks, I think the longest time I've been away overseas was 1 month in Canada. And that was just too long for me. You remember that? Right? But now in Thailand, when they came back, I was staying by myself in this double-story building. All of you know that. I mean, okay, you're staying alone. Now, the best time for me is when I'm traveling throughout Asia, when I'm doing ministry. The worst time is when I come back home to Chiang Mai. And I'm in this house by myself. I miss my wife, right? I miss you all. And I mean, just to answer the question, did I struggle? Oh, boy. If any man who is watching tonight and he's away overseas by himself, leaving his family behind, says, no, I'm okay, it's okay. Man, you are a liar, man. A real liar. I mean, not only a man, a woman as well, a wife, because God's intent for family to be together, husband and wife, they're one flesh. Yes, I struggled. Now, how did I overcome that? Communication. Communicate. So this is my advice to men. And there are scenarios, of course, circumstances in which we cannot avoid, right? Especially our soldiers, right? Who are out there in Sinai, in the Golan Heights, those who are working for United Nations or out there in business to support their family, right? These people are really taking a big risk, being away, but they're doing it for good intentions. It's not that they're just leaving their family behind, but it's always a struggle. So I always advise people who are away from their family, communicate every day, right?
Every day.
Every day.
Single day.
And I don't know whether we use Skype. I don't know. Skype is like now an outdated technology already. Yeah. But in those days,
it was the thing.
It was the thing. And you know that. Almost every day, we would Skype each other, right? And we would talk until
there's
nothing else to talk about. And then on the next day, we would talk again. And then, but one of the things I struggled about, I think the question said what the possible scenario. Yeah, you were telling your story last week about that time when you were drunk driving my EX847. Boy, that really put a lot of pressure on me. Knowing, because I was away, and she has to handle that pressure, of course, by herself. And I felt that pressure, and I kept on calling, sort of trying to give a leadership and direction from a distant location. It's not that easy, right? So that was one of the scenarios, if you will, where I really struggled. But I thank God that we have the technology. And today, I don't think any family has any problem whatsoever, or any excuse when these kind of situations happen, when we are far away from each other. For me, and because I travel a lot, and you know that, I travel a lot almost every day. I always try and call her. And she knows that. Almost every day I will call and tell, okay, this is what we're doing. I'm here in this place. And every time, and she knows this, every time the plane touches down in Nandi, when I'm returning, it's like I'm in heaven. I mean, to be honest, I don't care where I am in the world, whether I am in Australia, New Zealand, or the United States of America, anyway. The moment the plane touches down in Nandi, it's like, okay, I'm home. It's like I'm in heaven. And the moment it touches down, I turn my mobile on. The first thing I'll do, I'll call her. I'm home. Right? The first thing she'll ask, Sakele Nandi? Sakele. Right? So, communication. Yeah. Right? Communication, communicate with your wife, communicate with your children, what's happening to them. And I think it is important, transparency as well, in us just sharing, okay, the burden, especially when you were messing up that time, right? And that's when we were like talking it over and sharing that burden and crying over the phone, over Skype together and trying to solve this problem. So that was one scenario that I struggled with and, and how we tried to handle it.
Nangona tuguntika kwena pingona kedendo mendo ya mai nandi ausando on tartuni kuno konisa buko chiko maisa on rautun gutalibun ongai be daka katiko nongo daga ko sakilan ko ina kele ngai nandi tangir na talibun
makasando kelato na time ni kele
kila bina ko kele ngabango osara tu mendo no buno bali kurse be tangir talibun. Yeah.
I think I always, return to base. I used to say, we, as men, as husband, know your base, because if you don't call your base, you know what you'll get when you call the next time. So I think communication is very important in those types of situations. And again, I feel for those men who are away, and families who are back in Fiji. That's why I think in one of our episodes I said, this is where they need our support, especially the immediate relatives. For the mothers who are struggling with their children when their husbands are away. Yeah. So this is where we need to really come together and help support each other. And these are also, because these are very important times, these are times also when marriages can break up. Especially when the husband is away or the father is away for a long time. They miss their father. They miss, the wives miss their husband.
The moms too away to work.
Yes.
Yeah. So it goes for both moms and dads.
Or both parents are at home and one of their children is away, maybe for studies. Or work, right? And so those are kind of situations that, and again, communicate. Yeah. Communication is so important.
I think from a child's perspective, I will just say, like when I was away in Australia last year for 8 months, what kept me going was like the thought of my family and the fact that I communicated with them. I would try to stay updated, okay, what's happening at home? And because like for us, we've been taught to celebrate life, whatever, if it's someone's birthday or if someone just achieved something or
anniversary, wedding anniversary.
If we got any good news, like what are we doing? We have to plan, do something. So I was constantly communicating back home. Yeah. I just wanted to share like one of those incidents that I struggled with a long distance relationship with my family when I think all of us were back in Fiji. Dad was still in Thailand. He had an accident.
Yes.
He had
that's a one. Yes.
Yes, he had an accident at a home in Thailand. So our home is a double-story home. I don't know what he wanted to do up at the roof, and he fell through the roof.
Yes, I think I was trying to fix the antenna of the television.
Yeah.
Something like that, and then I wasn't mindful of the fact that the roofs in Thailand were a little bit different from our corrugated roofing idea. So I stepped on something and my feet went right through. And boy, luckily I hang on to one of those rafters. And then while I was hanging like that, boy, and I had a little bit of bruises. And I think I communicated that.
Yeah. And he called us when he was in hospital to tell us that he just got into an accident. I thought it was so big that I was going to lose my father. So like that was one of the scenarios that like really got to me, like the struggle, like to worry about. And not only that, because they traveled a lot, I would sometimes worry if they are okay, if they've reached their destination, if they haven't called for like, sometimes because of the distance where they go.
And the time difference.
Yeah, the time difference.
Different time zones.
So network, like they can't communicate. I worry all the time. Even in Fiji, if I know, because I know my father sleeps, sometimes he sleeps by 9 o'clock, sometimes he sleeps by 10. And if he's not home, and because we've moved here in the central region, and he does a lot of traveling to Neitasiri, Reo, and Tailevu. So especially Neitasiri, because it's very far, and he doesn't get home by 10, I'm gonna start getting worried. I won't sleep until he gets home, even if it's 1 in the morning, because that's new to me. So when he gets home, and then he would say, so then I can sleep. So I mean, it's a struggle, not only for moms and dads, but for children as well. So that's why I just wanted to share that. Thank you. Okay, going on to question number 3. This gentleman was raised without a dad. And mostly raised by his grandmother, where he was taught that a man should take the lead in everything in the home, including doing what is known to be, done by women. Cooking, laundry, cleaning the house, washing the dishes, you name it. His wife, however, was brought up in a family where only women do the household chores. And she would stop him from doing those chores because she feels diminished as a woman, because that's what she has been taught. They now have a son. And he wants to teach his son the same things he was taught. And so his question to Dad is, since you have two sons in the family, do you have a standard on how you raise them? And is it a problem that you teach your sons how to do women's chores and all that, as seen by society?
I think the question here is about the roles, the roles that we play at home as men and women, girls and boys. Now, I too grew up like in a single mother family, and then my mother remarried. And I was like, and being the eldest, I was like the boy and the girl in the family. I did boys' job, I did girls' job. I would wash the dish, cook the food, clean the house, iron the clothes, and things like that. And it was very, very unusual for people to see me as a boy do that. Right? Like, I was kind of mocked because I was doing all these kind of things and I was a boy. And I was not kind of allowed to mingle with other boys because I was, at that time, the eldest in the family. Now, in the question that is here, this is kind of two different extremes. On this extreme, it's the boy who was brought up to be able to do the girl's chores. And on this extreme, it's the girl who's been taught, this is your role, right? And she doesn't expect her husband to do it. Now, I feel this is where they need to complement each other. Right? Yeah, complement each other and communicate and understand the different backgrounds that they came from. Now, for me personally, I know. I don't want to show off here, but you guys, you love my cooking, don't you?
He's a good chef, yes.
Right? I love to cook curry, especially.
Yes.
And Pedi is now beginning to love cooking as well. I'm beginning to love her cooking. Now, I'm not saying that I cook every day now because I've got people here at home who can do it and I'm busy, you know. But I love to do that. I love to cook.
Oh, and can I mention, like, he loves not only to cook, but the house has to be super clean.
Yeah.
If the grass nisa tumong amalina though, yeah, sa kito sa chuku da kito bibala sa
He's a very organized kind of person.
Yes.
Wants everything, you know.
Details.
Yes.
So if the grass is grown, Julia, coaching though, Philly, coaching though.
And not only that,
Yeah.
sa coaching na do, me tapos
Sarda. Kotali, don't leave it for tomorrow. He wants it done like.
Now,
Sometimes my Thailand, ni koti bangona do, oira na mai koti.
Yeah.
They do it.
Sa maksariana compound,
Yeah.
Ia, in dua bula lebu tu vikirau, ni sianga tali kerola ko itumba le rikrik, ni orto na may sasama ki. E chinta kina sinikau ka kevea sapsababandu arangay.
And they are consistent, you know. It's like it's a contract, and they know when to come. I don't know, maybe they just go around. And when they come, I don't have to tell them to cut the lawn, you know, to mow the lawn. They'll just come and do it, and we'll give them the money. And of course, it's so cheap that you feel that the job they do and the amount you pay is not enough. So, you know, you give, sometimes I give double and tips. But I guess I live by the principle of cleanliness is next to godliness. I just love that. And that's how I live in the compound as well. People here know my standard in the compound, right? And because that is just, now there's a danger there. There's a danger there, and I must admit that sometimes when it comes to cleanliness, and I love it when the house is in order. It's my language of love.
Yes, the 5 languages.
Right? It's my language of love. When the house is clean, everything is in order, this lady loves me. To me, boy, you love me. Now the danger is this, I can go to this extreme where I become a perfectionist.
Yes. Yes. And he's okay, let me tell you guys something. Yeah? When he doesn't like we're not doing anything about it, or if the grass is cut, like he'll be quiet.
And I'll do it.
Yeah, and that's a sign to us. He doesn't like something. We did something wrong.
Now, because for me, when I see something that needs to be done and it's not done, I don't want to talk then. I want my action to speak.
He wants to tell us, this is how it's supposed to be done.
This is how it's be done. And that's when I see everybody in the house. Now, okay. So I communicate.
But that's not good.
Okay, yeah. I guess I need deliverance in that.
Yes, a lot. Big
Right?
time.
Yeah. But to go back to the question, how, you know, I don't mind really teaching my boys to be able to cook or wash. Because that, again, is some women's language of love. An act of, act of kindness. I can't remember exactly.
That's
right?
my love
So now, the wife in this situation who doesn't expect her husband to do that, I think the husband needs to understand the background she came from. So this is where the understanding needs to come. And I have no problem at all training or teaching my sons to be able to do women's chores at home. Because marriage is a complementary thing, all right? The woman comes to complement the man, not to compete.
Yep.
And not only complement the man, to complete the man. Complete the man. The man needs help, all right? So in that situation, I think this is where understanding is needed, communication again, and I think the wife should appreciate the fact that her husband can do all these kind of things and train.
That's an advantage, my sister.
Yeah.
So when you're sick, when you're done, when you're in that moody phase of your life, you don't have to worry because your man will clean the house for you. I would love a man like that.
But don't take it for
I was
granted.
going to say that.
All right?
Don't get comfortable.
Don't take it for granted again to the point where you expect your husband to do it all the
Please
time.
do it. I don't mind.
Yes. Balance is the key to life.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? Balance is the key to life. So as I said, I really don't mind cooking if I have time for that, and sometimes I love doing that. And I can organize. But one thing with me, I can cook. But my problem, I can't dish out the
He
food.
can't. Kung nabasa nga, iyan, doon sa amin nakakakana sa kakana.
Now, I say nikakana, I just don't know how to do it. Because if I do it, some people won't eat. Some people won't eat.
That's me too.
Yeah.
Pedi does the dishing. I
Yes.
cook, she does the dishing.
Yeah, but Pedi can cook and dish at the same time.
That's
Yes.
the strength.
But I don't know whether I've seen Junior cook.
Yes,
No.
Huh?
Oh yeah, noodles.
Because I would expect him to be able to cook for his wife when he gets married.
But he hasn't been raised that bad anyway.
Yeah.
Like my dad has done his bit in teaching him how to do women's chores, and plus he went to a boarding school, and he did all that by himself. He would wash his own clothes, but so they really take on the head of I'm a boy, you do it.
Yeah. What's your perspective on that?
Yes, mostly when I was at boarding school, you begin to learn all of this skill. It's not because that you don't have the parents, but because you were forced to do it on your own. So you had no choice.
Yeah.
So I think that was a strength or a skill that I learned in boarding school, just to be able to fend for myself and live independently. I think that was.
Yes, so I hope that's answered that question. Question number 4. This is in regards to the in-laws series. This is a question from a young lady.
That must be an interesting one. Yeah.
Yes. The question is, what if the son is the sole breadwinner of the family and his parents depend on him? His mom asks him and the girl, her, to live with them to help out with expenses. What should the girl do if the guy's family totally depend on her future husband?
These are some scenarios that we cannot avoid, right? They do happen. It's not only the boy's family, it can also be from the girl's family, right? So the first thing I think that is needed here, whether it's the boy or the girl, because it can happen in both sides, there needs to be a mutual agreement between the newly married couple, right? The boy and the girl. Say let's take this question, that the parents of the boy, the in-laws of the girl, want them to go and live with them because he is the sole breadwinner. This is the situation where the girl now is become a wife, she's become a wife, needs to sit down with her husband, right? And tell him, right, this is what's going to happen. They need to agree together. The boy should never force his wife to do something that she doesn't agree with, because there will always be trouble. Right? So the wife needs to understand the situation of her husband's family. And she has to give her consent, because by right, she needs to grow her own family. Right? Because the place of agreement is the place of power. The place of disagreement is the place of powerlessness. This is where, especially because they've just started a family. And I think we've talked about when a girl gets married, she wants her own home. Now, having said that, these are some situations that we cannot avoid. It can happen to both sides. So there needs to be this mutual agreement, right? Right, and then secondly, the boy. Now he has to take ownership, take responsibility now. He's taking his wife to his parents' home. In his parents' home, the parents are the boss. His mother owns the home, if you will. So his wife will go and live under their roof. So there needs to be an agreement too between them and the parents on how they will deal with this in order for them to live together successfully. And then, because he's the sole breadwinner, his priority is his family. Right? That doesn't mean he should never support. That's why they're living there. So this is where balance, again, comes in. How they will budget their income. What should be used for the extended family now? And what he should prioritize for his wife. Right? And it's easy when they're still, they don't have children yet. Right? But the moment they have children, this is where you have another mouth to feed. And it is the boy's responsibility. It is not the grandparents' responsibility. So, an understanding between the couple, the newlywed couple, and the in-laws. Because we cannot avoid this situation. It happens a lot, especially in our context, the Itaukei context. Right? And as I said, it happened both. Merah mechikula vindindinatia. Kepakai senga, yan na lang. Right? So, this is where real understanding comes in. Pevi, what will happen if this situation, if I have to ask you, you're going to get married and your husband says that you're going to move into their home, how would you respond to that?
Well, if there's no, like Dad said, we need a mutual agreement. But if there's no mutual agreement, I think, well, for us women, we'll probably struggle with that. Because I think for us, like Dad said, we have to talk with them, sit with your husbands, and settle an agreement. But if there's no mutual agreement, then you will struggle. You will start to create this whole new vision, especially for us women. We start to create this whole new version of ourselves. We have to go into their homes. We have to come up to their level of expectations, and then you change this. Like, you just start to change yourself. Like, you want to fit in, you want to act, you want to try and meet standards.
Sometimes you pretend.
Yes. And then
Mask on.
Yeah. You put on
But you're not
mask.
happy with
Yeah.
But for me, that would be one of the hardest decision I'll have to make.
But sometimes it's unavoidable.
Yeah, but as long as there's agreement on where to draw the lines.
Junior, if this was you, right?
Junior will buy his
Say for instance, right? You are the sole breadwinner. We depend on you, right? How would you treat this?
Yeah, I think comes down to understanding. Obviously, if you have your parents there who wants, who needs support, then I think for me as a male, I think it's also like a sense of responsibility to take care of my parents. Even though, like they've told me, like you can do your own things, but there's always that feeling, no, I can't do it, but I want to take care of them too.
Yes.
So it comes down to understanding, with my parents as well and the spouse.
Yeah.
So it would be tough, but I think with the way Dad and Mom are, they are really understanding with the situations. They're flexible. So I think Dad and Mom would really fit in.
It will be a lot of pressure on the man in this situation.
Yeah, not so much on the woman.
Not so much on the woman, because on the man, because his attention is diverted.
Yeah.
He's focusing on his wife
And his mom and dad.
It'll be very hard on him. Okay, and this is where he needs the support of his wife. Okay, this is where a suitable helper comes in. Okay, in this scenario, that is if the girl has to go and live in her in-laws' home. This is where the support from her and the understanding is really very much needed. And it can happen the other ways, other side as well. And especially if he's the only one working, he's the sole breadwinner for his parents and also for his wife. Right? The pressure will be on him. And their relationship can be strained by that. Right? something has to give way. Right? Either that one will thrive or this one. But then for him to try and balance this, it'll be very hard indeed. But we have to be prepared for those possible scenarios. They do happen. They do happen. They are unavoidable.
So my sister that asked that question, I hope you've gotten your answer. And it's just a matter of, talking it out with him and having that mutual understanding before you actually, get married and move into the home. The next question is from my brother. Kenyan has a question.
Right, so this is the question. It's like a scenario. So consider a couple in courtship in which the woman already has a child. The usual response from the man is, I'm willing to take care of the child when we get married. However, during marriage, the stepchild is neglected and does not experience the love that he longs for from his stepdad. What would be the advice on that? And the second one is, with increasing number of teenage pregnancy, what would be advice to single parents, especially young girls?
Again, this is another scenario that is unavoidable, but it can be controlled. Love sometimes can be blind, right? Yeah, you know what that means, eh? Yeah, nandun mo daw tundo na second daw lang at tuiliw na vindo mo niya sa na kenaway. Yeah. This is where how you begin your courtship is very important, especially for the younger generation watching tonight. All right? Now, I would advise that when you get married, choose somebody that has not had a relationship before or a child. Right? You begin your relationship fresh, right? And then you produce your baby together. Right? That would be the best way to start a relationship. And I think that is biblical as well. Okay. Now, having said that, there are situations like this. I grew up in that situation. I am the case study for this, right? Where my mother looked after me until she remarried, right? So I had a stepfather, right? Now, no one else can give the fatherly love to a son like the biological father. Not always. There are times when even stepfathers, they love their stepchild or stepchildren much better than their own biological fathers, right? So it's a case-by-case basis. So here the boy said to the girl, I'm going to look after your child. Just because he wants the girl. You see? Just because he wants the girl. Right? He's not really interested in the child. He's only interested in the girl. And when he has his own child from the girl, the love that should be going to this child, which he promised, the child is now neglected. One of the things we men must realize, whether we are biological fathers or not, you don't have to have children to play the role of a father. A young man like Junior, even though he's not married, he can still play that role of a father, the father figure. And every child that grows up in a family needs a father figure. I miss that. And I've told that story, how much I missed that father figure. And I couldn't, provide that role, the responsibility for you. I struggle with that. I've told that story. So that is because one of the curses of the generation that we live in is fatherlessness. This is one of the biggest problems, causing a lot of family breakups. Fatherlessness. So my appeal, therefore, to every man, whether you are living with a woman whose child is not yours biologically, right, or you have your own biological children, you need to play the role of the father, a loving father, embracing your stepchild and your biological child and giving them equal attention that a father, should give to their children. I know it's not always easy. Even for me, in any family, there will always be a favorite child. Sometimes we can avoid that. Like, okay, my pet one, right? Daddy's girl, right? Daddy's girl. I know. Sometimes it's just unavoidable. Now, that doesn't mean that I love Grace more than the other two. No. I love them equally. It's just that I can't help it, I guess. That somebody, I think this is a real scenario. But my appeal, to men out there and mothers as well, let us offer ourselves to be mothers and fathers, because there are a lot of people out there who are struggling because they have lost or they have not experienced the love of a father and the love of a mother. And I think we've told the story about the Shushan boy, right? So that would be my appeal, really.
Yeah, I guess, and that not only goes to the men who play, the stepfather role, but also to women who play stepmom roles, It's not easy, but I guess just like the advice that has been given, no child deserves to grow up without a mom or a dad. And then if you can step in to be that mom and dad, and do it. Be that person. Take responsibility. Give that love, because that child deserves all the love and support. And you never know, the child that you are giving your love and support to could someday be the prime minister or one of the prominent people in your country, So
and I've seen some men, fathers, who are just loving fathers to their stepchildren. I mean, I'm almost trying to name somebody here, but I just see that, how they love their stepchildren and their own biological children, and they just treat them equally. And sometimes stepfathers just love their stepchildren much more, right? The love, and of course the biological children is their flesh and blood, always. Doesn't matter what happens. And because research has shown that children who grow up in a family without a father, they will grow up feeling insecure. A lot of social problems, crimes that are committed, generally are committed by those who grow up in families where there is no father figure. So that's where we need to step in. For us personally, for the two of us, and people know this, we have a lot of people who call us mom and dad. Our own children and everyone else. Because we've given them that space, right? And we've given them that permission to do so, right? They call us dad, they call us mom. And because everyone wants to call somebody mom and dad, right? Whether it's biological mom and dad or mom and dad by virtue of relationship, right? You can be a father by virtue of a relationship. You don't necessarily have to be a biological father to be called dad, or a biological mother to be called mother. And another add-on to that, question to
the teenage pregnancy.
Teenage, and that is unfortunately, it's increasing in our nation. And we live in a time also where teenagers are becoming sexually active at a very, very young age. Why? It's because of the technology of the day. And I've heard also it's because of the food that we eat, right? That young people are getting sexually active at a very, very young age, getting pregnant very, very easily, very quickly at a young age, and then producing children. We have a lot of teenagers who are experiencing unwanted pregnancy and producing children, and are still living with their children, not married yet. And my advice to the girls watching tonight, you only give away your virginity once. Now, this is a word that is never talked about on national platforms like this. Right? When you lose your virginity physically, you can never be restored physically. What you lose in the physical, God can always restore in the spiritual. And that is the thing that you should give away to the man that you will marry. And same to the man. Right? So, true love waits. It's okay to say no to sex. Because I've realized that young people can say no to drugs, can say no to alcohol, can say no to cigarettes, and everything else. But when it comes to sexual temptation, it's very hard. Right? So you give away your virginity only once, both boys and girls. Right? And what a way to start a marriage when both of you have kept yourself pure, sexually pure, until the day that God brings you together in this covenant of marriage.
Thank you. Hopefully that has answered that question. Now we jump into divorce question.
That's a tough one.
This is indeed a tough one, and I'm glad I don't have to answer this. Now, this question is, the husband wants to leave because of the treatment his wife gives him. They have been married for more than 20 years. Ever since they had their second child, they have never slept together in the same room. So practically they haven't...
For 20 years?
Yes, ever since they had their second child. And she never cooks his meals. She doesn't want to sit down to talk and discuss their family issues. And she never supports him in ministry. The question is it okay that he leaves and finds another woman who can support and love him better?
The question simply is asking, is it okay for him to divorce? Well, let me just say it right from the outset that God hates divorce. Because it wasn't God's divine intent that marriage, the covenant of marriage, should be broken by either one. Right? He hates it always because it involves unfaithfulness on one of them. Because marriage is a solemn covenant between two that have entered into that commitment. Right? So God hates divorce. Now, having said that, and you can look at Malachi chapter 2, verse 14 to 16, talks about that. But Jesus was asked a question in Matthew chapter 19. The Pharisees asked him, because it's okay for a man to divorce his wife. And Jesus referred back to Genesis, right? And he said, that should be the way. A man coming together, marry a woman, and they shall become what? One flesh. And it should be like that. But then they asked the question, but why did Moses give the certificate of a divorce? And Jesus answered the Pharisees and said, because their hearts were hard. What is that? Sin. So sin, therefore, divorce is simply a concession to sin. It wasn't God's divine intent for divorce to take place. And I know there were a lot of questions on divorce. So then Jesus went on to answer that question, that if any man leaves his wife except for unfaithfulness, or another translation, sexual immorality. The phrase sexual immorality actually comes from the Greek word porneia, P-O-R-N-E-A, where you get the word pornography. And sexual immorality or porneia involves not only adultery, that is having sex outside of marriage, or extramarital affair, homosexuality, lesbianism, bestiality, or any kind of sexual immorality. It's all included in that phrase, sexual immorality or porneia or unfaithfulness. So what Jesus was simply saying, the only ground biblically, for divorce is when one has committed adultery, has become unfaithful, sexually immoral. Now, having said that, why did Jesus answer that way? Because he knows that we are human beings, we're sinners. Right? Whether we like it or not, this will always happen. But it wasn't God's divine intent. Now, it doesn't mean that if she commits adultery today, that I file for divorce straight away. No. Divorce must be the last what? Resort. Now, this is always a sensitive matter in Christian circles, right? And we know God hates it, of course. But as much as God hates divorce, because marriage is a covenant, divorce is man's concession to what? Sin, because of our sinful nature, right? So every effort has to be made to reconcile, forgiveness, restoration. But sometimes even all the good efforts we try and do, nothing happens, right? So unfaithfulness or abandonment, that is when one of them fails to perform their role or an unbeliever just deserts.
Yeah, Dad, I reflect on a verse, I can't remember which verse, but I have read it, where, because this question is saying for more than, ever since their second child was born, they haven't slept together in the same room. There's a Bible verse that says the wife's body belongs to the husband, and the husband's body belongs to the wife. So then there's something like this.
This is a very complicated matter.
Yeah.
Where the woman here in this particular question is not cooking her husband's meal, it's not sleeping with him, that should never happen in a marriage relationship. Now, I can understand why the husband in this situation just wants to leave, right? But having said that again, the only biblical ground for divorce, according to Jesus, not me, Matthew 19:9, is unfaithfulness. But please, don't assume or don't take it for granted that that is a license for divorce, right? I can't imagine when a divorce takes place, the trauma that the wife or the husband goes through, the children, and everything else. Having a divorce is a lose-lose situation. Nobody wins. Please, nobody wins. It's a lose-lose situation. And the other thing too about divorce is this. If I divorce my wife of 34 years, just because I'm interested in another woman, if I cannot make this relationship of 34 years work, what guarantee is there that this relationship that I have to begin from ground zero will work? So if it doesn't work, what happens? I quit and marry another one. And there's another question there about people in ministry. People who are in ministry, divorcing their wives, remarrying, divorcing their wife, remarrying, as if it's a habit and a lifestyle. That's wrong. That's wrong. You shouldn't be doing that and being involved in ministry at the same time. First, it's not a good example to the flock. Right? We have to, especially if we are people in ministry, we have to live by example, live by a standard. Okay? So, biblically speaking, according to the Lord Jesus, Moses gave a certificate of divorce because of what? Sin. Because you have hard hearts. Right? And Jesus then went on to say in verse 9 of Matthew 19, if a man or woman leaves his wife or husband, except for unfaithfulness or sexual immorality, then they're sinning. Okay? So I hope that it's not an easy issue to talk about. I hate divorce. I can't imagine how I can divorce this woman. Right? Right? And having said that, and I know that Jesus, why Jesus said that is because he understood human weaknesses. And we know, and it saddens my heart. Almost every day I receive messages on my Facebook page of women. Sometimes I just cried out to God, of women who have just been left behind with their children, and because their husbands have gone to live with other women. It's sad. I mean, just imagine the pressure, the pain, the hurt. It's a betrayal of trust. Yeah? Divorce is a betrayal of trust. Adultery is a betrayal of trust. Again, one of the things I usually pray in my prayer, that God will help me to be faithful. Be a faithful child of His, faithful father to my children, faithful husband to my wife. And that God will help me not to do anything to betray the trust they have in me as their father and the trust she has in me as her husband. So I appeal to every married man and woman out there. God hates divorce. Jesus said what he said in Matthew 19:9 because he understood human weakness. It's a concession to man's sin. But again, it has to be last resort when everything, all efforts have been exhausted to try and reconcile and restore that marriage unit.
Thank you.
I think that'll be the question on divorce.
Yeah, that has covered the divorce questions. I guess time is also catching up on us. We will have to go to the last question now. But don't worry for those of you who we haven't answered. Look, like we have so many questions here. We will have future episodes where we'll do Q&A again. But this last question for tonight will be from my brother. I guess he also has another question that we will end tonight's program with.
Right. The question is, what is the most difficult thing you have ever experienced in life while growing up? And second one, have you ever hated any of your parents so much and kept it within for decisions that they've made or anything before? If yes, explain why, when, why, and how did you sort it out with them or by yourself? I think for the first question, what is the most difficult thing you have ever experienced in terms of our family? It was when we lost my brother.
And that will be the topic of our
next-
discussion next week.
Next episode. So you begin to hear all of our experiences with it.
And some also ask questions to that effect. So for those who ask questions about how we dealt with our loss, please wait for next week.
Yeah.
Next week we will deal with that. How we, how you deal with the loss in the family.
Right, I think that's, for me personally, that was the most difficult thing that I have experienced in the context of our family. And the second one, have you ever hated any of your parents so much? I think this, from last week, you've heard testimony about me, my rebellious times during uni. I think this was, when Dad was in Thailand. So from time to time, advice that Mom usually gives me is, like, stop doing what you like. If you're doing this, don't do that. And every time, always think of Dad. So for me,
reputation.
His reputation.
His reputation.
So that's for me. Dad. What am I?
He not only does that to him, he does that to all,
To all of us. I would agree with my brother, and I think my sister.
Oh boy, we're guilty.
We all agree as siblings that every time we did something wrong, they would both tell us, no, what you're gonna get wrong.
Yeah.
Like it would be so unfair for us because, okay, you kito, like then we
puts
don't.
a bit of pressure on us.
Yeah, puts a lot of pressure, and we can't make that. We should not make any mistakes. That when we actually make the mistakes and when we mess up, where do we get it? So it was unfair. I think I will agree. That was.
I think for us that I think we definitely agree on that.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was something that we hated the most.
We hated our parents the most for.
And now I guess what you're saying, what you hated, because it was like we were intruding into your space,
Yes.
right? And I think that is one of the things I've learned. And what they were saying, completely true.
True.
All right? We're guilty of that. And again, it's a learning curve, right? We won't deny that. I said last week, when they messed up, I was more concerned about my reputation as a pastor and not so much about my role as a father, right? So we were intruding to their space because orang dinitala-tala, ko sa alang katakat siguro na wrong.
Kay tal-tal
Kay tal-tala. Alaba na kaya na liunlot. Right? Yeah.
Ano be se mata na taro ya itu pun tumeo junior. May nandoon na taro no nung gitoka ni randin tal-tala. Taro sa tinga may na taro ko ya taro ngiti ko nambong ni ko na dava na nonggurai ke baka may nalenga saya do berto ngoni na dava na no mu basala
Ano ni boss?
na buku na ni boss ni tamat may na lutu non rarai may na lutu kila oya ubi au nonggurai dea oya ubuli mai kina dina ni mo sina longu sona karto da kaba ba mo sina longu ia au bea kai ni kua oira na luvenda wambimbi kenda na tata ka lotu na non rarai tiku mena leoni lotu na luvenda na italtala me sa tiku sa rendo na bonuida ke me toto wat ki kenda na non rambula ia me rakilati ku na leoni lotu na luvenda era toto watanga kera na ngone era tiku lo mani lotu ve kemuni randini taro tiku mena bongni kua ve tiku na ve kemuni e sinindo e babuli da na luvena me le da ka vendo na kaeda kenda babuli da na luvena me rau ni ralevi naka kila ke baka mai na buni alongo na kaira tau da ka ya dina ni mosi ia mai loma au ngai tukuna mango oya unongui tabingo mo na bangandon te kiratou bale tau tiku bat kiratou na bisinga e na bangango na reni tamata na bosa na kake de na lok ngamai ia ko embimbi viau na dava na nongu rai viratou na nongu lomani ratou na kasa ya dongo ratou ngandreva na nongu mbula baka tina kia meu lomani ratou baka lebu mai na rai ni tamata erna ba ya tunga na bosin tamata na lakomai.
Yeah, I think the lesson that we learn from their parents is a time in your children's life. You know, when they were young, wherever you go, they cry. They want to go with you. Right? Everywhere we go, they will cry. They want to go with you. But a time comes when you tell them, okay, let's go. And they say, no, Mom, no, Dad, I'm staying. That's a signal. They're beginning to declare All right, respect my space, mom. Why? Because they've got their friends. Beginning to kind of declare their small world of their own, their independence. Right? And then you also need to understand your children's temperament, what their personality. Out of our 3 children, these 2, Junior and Grace, they are introverts, right? They keep to their own small world or their cave. This one is an extreme extrovert, right?
Extremist, not terrorist.
She speaks her mind out and things like so. We have to treat them equally like that as well. You can't treat your children the same. Right? You have to know who they are, their temperament, their personality, and treat them and also respect their space when they've grown up. At this age, I can say to pay the kaka. That's child language. I have to speak to her at that level. But I think this is a good learning curve for us, right? And trying to answer that question. Boy, I wish we had all the time to answer all your questions because we want to stick to only 1 hour of our time together.
Thank you. Thank you for answering the questions. Family, time has absolutely caught up with us, and we apologize to everyone that sent in their questions and we couldn't answer your questions tonight. But please bear with us and don't worry. When we have our next episode of Q&A, we will try and our very best to bring these questions in and answer the questions that you have for us. Tonight we only managed to answer 8 questions, and I'm surprised we managed to answer 8. I thought that we would only
And we had a
go
total
to
of
6.
13.
Well, there
More
was
than
more than 30,
Wow.
but most
We
had
condensed it.
similar questions, so we condensed it. But again, thank you so much to everyone that reached out to us and gave in your questions. We appreciate you all for your love and support. Thank you to all of you, our faithful viewers. We were doing a small, our team was doing a small analysis of our viewers and
For this program.
And we just want to say thank you so much to all of you that have viewed, those who have been reached with this program. Not only this program, but our Thursday and our Sunday services as well. Nakapakalebu, malakapakalebu na vito koni, na nomni lolomo tikmai vikito, but kana timi ni media Faith Harvest. And we just want to say we appreciate you all. We appreciate the support, the love that you all have given us. Next week, we will be here again for our 6th episode that will be specially dedicated to my late brother, Moses Tamanidabo Kolivuso. The episode called The Loss and how we managed our loss as a family. But don't forget to join us again this Sunday, 10 a.m. for our service. And same time, same place next week, 7 p.m. for this program From Our Family to Yours. But before we go, I'll ask Dad to end with a word of prayer.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you so much for this time, for the questions that came and the answers that we were able to discuss together as a family to help those, oh God, who have sent in those questions. Thank you so much for everyone that is watching tonight, families, couples, young people, oh God. Thank you, Lord, that out of this they can learn something and that lives will be impacted, families will be impacted, marriages that are breaking down will be restored, Father. We pray for godly families, godly children in the nation, oh God. And we thank you so much for families, oh God, that will grow together in love, loving you and loving one another, and extending that love, oh God, to the world out there. Bless us together tonight. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. From our family to yours, we love you all, and there's nothing you can do about it. Have a blessed weekend.
Naka,
Bye.
Mother.